Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostle, elder, great millstone, tells the truth, and who rule well. Shalom to the awful elect, whoever may be listening. This is the brother Yahweh from the branch of Great Millstone here in Gary, Indiana. Coming to you with another lesson. A quick news update, and a few precepts just to back it up. We'll be going into, the Venezuela situation as well as the San Andreas, fault line, and earthquakes, being in diverse places, and the Lord sending pestilences, you know, across the world, especially, in Babylon the Great. So Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. I got the inspiration from watching Elder Yashawamba. As you can see, I'm literally about to finish up the video, but yeah, I'm just gonna go into these articles real quick. Like I said, Lord, and this lesson is edifying. And it says, to start this off, this was yesterday, and it says, Venezuela hit by strongest earthquake in 126 years. It said, per New York Times, says the disaster in Caracas, 126 years ago, killed 21 people and injured 50. Says the 1900 earthquake had a magnitude of 7.7, which is insane. You know, that's enough to do some serious damage. You know, um, let us see what it says. It reiterates what it said. Let's get to the point though. Down here it says authorized President Delcy Rodriguez. At least 32 people were deleted, 700 were injured, and dozens of buildings were destroyed. It says this was updated 54 minutes ago, and it says deleted toll from earthquake in Venezuela up to 920 per agency. So this is getting insane, and it says more than uh you know uh 3,300 people were injured. And the death tolls can rise, just because lack of power, lack of food, you know lack of water, in these places. And let's look this up, because I remember Elder Yashawamba, brought this up as well, how the Cuban situation, they're still out of power, and it keeps going on and off, and they're having lack of water. Cuba water crisis. As well as Puerto Rico. Uh, I meant the Puerto Rico one. Excuse me. Cuba, um, power crisis, power shortage. Yep, in Havana. This is from Reuters Connect. Why can't this show? Jeez. It says Cuba's ongoing energy crisis continues to have a major impact on all aspects of daily life. Voices from the front line. It says the power outages are killing me more than hunger, and as much as lack of painkillers from my knee. 72-year-old resident. It says if there's no electricity, I can't keep food fresh. I can't charge my phone, and if I feel sick and can't get up from the couch, I can't call anyone. In my case, it's no longer just inconvenience; it's a health issue. So these energy crises, these water crises, are going to cause mass deletions. Especially for the elderly. They're not going to have anybody to take care of them. And the little ones as well. Let's see what else to say. It says the system is imploding. which is crazy. And like Elder Yashimamba was saying, these are Israelites, these are Israelites, this is the tribe of Manasseh, you know. So, hey, the Lord is messing up our people, you know, first and foremost, because, they're not coming back to the law, statutes, and commandments, still in idolatry, but also, the Lord is sending the hammer of the earth upon them, you know. I believe DJT, the trumpet, you know, he was pretty much beefing with their government, and then literally, I believe it was a few days later, or literally a week later, these they start having power shortages, you know. So hey, just read, just read between the lines, look at the patterns that are going on. Let's go into let's go to the scripture for the Venezuela. You know, this the book of Second Esdras 9, starting at verse 1. It says, "He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, thou then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made." You know, and we're measuring the time, through the news, and through the scriptures, the prophecies. We're lining these up together, to bring this out, for the people, whoever may be listening, you know. Verse 3 says, when thou, when, Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning, which is prophecies. And as we see, multiple earthquakes that happen on multiple, fronts, multiple continents of the earth. And which the scripture just said, the Lord spake of these things. And how did he speak these things? Through his prophets and the prophecies, that he had them write down, in the scriptures. Let's get this, because I thought this was interesting, just to back this up. So it's a seismometer. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, okay. All right, so it says earthquakes from today is in the purple. And you seeing this? Okay, this is Africa, Asia. Look how many of these it is. Then the Americas, Central America, South America, and these just the ones that they're reporting, you know. And then the ones that's in the pink are the ones that happened yesterday. And the ones in the orange that happened in the past 2 weeks. Man, this is prophecy jumping off the book. You gotta have eyes to see, and ears to hear when when brothers bringing this stuff out. Hey, it's the word of the Lord. Let's get this um where was it? The San Andreas fault line. And the title of this is says Venezuela's earthquakes happen on a fault similar to San Andreas, and the risks aren't over yet. And this came out literally today, from the independent.co.uk. And man, talking about right there. I had to scroll down because that's where I found it at. All right, this is the point right here. This second paragraph says Southern California's last big one was Fort Tejon. It's an earthquake of 1857. It says a powerful magnitude 7.1, 7.9, pretty much 8.0. Says a recent study suggests the stress along the southern San Andreas is stronger now than it has been in at least 1,000 years. If assumptions of the work are correct, it may be ready for a rupture, which will cause, shoot, shit, thousands, but it could go up to the millions. You know, in the deletion toll, it says, but there's a great variability in how frequently big earthquakes happen. So it can happen anytime, any place. It says, so it may be another 100 years, which we know this place ain't last another 100 years. You know, because the Lord said He'll shorten up the time, and according to Esau's, timeline of what they're trying to do with the New World Order, by 2030, we know the Lord's gonna, Job 20 says the fullness of sufficiency. He shall be in straits, and pretty much the iron weapon shall strike him through. Roughly paraphrasing in that chapter. So we know in the middle, in the height of the New World Order, the Lord is gonna come back. So we know it's not gonna be another 100 years. So it said maybe another 100 years, or it could happen tomorrow. We just don't know. And there's nowhere to prepare for earthquake. You know, when the Lord put judgments in the earth, none could deliver out of His hand. So we don't know how much the deletion toll is gonna be. Ain't nowhere to prepare for it. That's why you gotta stay prayed up. And return back into your Yahweh Bashimi Shai, through repentance and through your works. You know. Let's see if I have anything else. We can get that in Luke 21 and 11. Luke chapter 21, verse 11. We can start at verse 10. It says, then said he unto them, nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. You know, and this goes into, wars, as well as, infighting, between, you know, uh, civil unrest, civil wars happening. It says, verse 11, and great earthquakes shall be in diverse places, and famines, and pestilences, and fearful sights, and great signs shall there be from heaven, you know, like we've seen, great earthquakes, in diverse places. You see how many it was in the past 2 weeks, you know, and it's probably way more than that, but Esau just didn't, uh, put it on paper, or made it public. And it says famines. Let's get that real quick. Where was that? Let's see. Water shortages in the U.S. I believe it was in California as well as Minnesota. Let's see, Minneapolis. I think it was California though. Let's see. Dang, now the phone just wanted to start tripping. I can't even type or nothing right now. Thank you. Typing today. It says major interstate water lifelines in Central Valley agriculture areas face significant shortages. Colorado, some extreme pressure shrinking due to less snowmelt. Where was that? see how many different things going on. Let's see about the Minnesota. Jeez, bro, what is going on with this phone? There was just an article about this. That's funny. Kelly Yashwamba was just bringing us out. That's funny though. Let's go to the Puerto Rico one. Puerto Rico water shortage. And this was last week. NPR.org. The daily toll of no running water in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Says Puerto Rico is dealing with a severe shortage of running water, so severe that the governor has activated the National Guard to distribute drinking water across the island. The problem's been building for months, caused by ruptures and leaks in Puerto Rico's aging aqueduct system. Workers this this week have been scrambling to repair a massive crack in one major pipe that's left tens of thousands of people in and around the capital with no water at all. Here with us now, I'm not gonna go into that. Yeah, says says Jose Luigi, thanks for having me. Florida says, how long have you not had any water? It says, I haven't had water for a month and 22 days. You haven't had water for almost 2 months? He said, mm-hmm. So how's this affecting your life? It says, well, first of all, like I had to rearrange how I live my daily life. And that's going to happen in America very soon. You know, this is not too far away. This is about, you know, a 30-minute train, not train, but plane ride, from Florida. You know, you in the East Coast or Midwest, 2 hours away, on the plane. Says, says, I live my daily life. What says, well, first of all, like I had to rearrange how I live my daily life because I have to think about how I'm going to get water, where I'm going to bathe. Luckily, I have, a family and friends, and some of them have water, not all of them. And so I can bathe at their house or I can, like, get water from them. You know, he said he had a lot of crying spells, anxiety, but you get the gist. And this is going to happen in Jacob's Trouble, you know, especially, and it's going to get crazy, especially because, with the lack of food, and water, and resources. Let's get there real quick. I know it's not Deuteronomy, it's second, there's 16, 15, Salakia. Yeah, I know it's 16, others had on chapter 2. Second, there's 15, starting at verse. We'll start verse 14. It says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein. Destruction, it says, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And what's the modern day swords? Guns, knives, whatever they come up with. It says, for there shall be sedition among men, uproars, civil unrest, civil wars, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. So the people, in America, Babylon the Great, they're not going to regard, their leaders, their governors, mayors, you know, DJT, their officials, government officials like officers, police officers. They're not going to care about that. We all going to be in the same boat, pretty much, if you're not one of the elites. So they're not going to care. And what are the police going to do? They're going to be significantly outnumbered. So what can they possibly do? That's when they're going to have to send these NATO troops, these mercenaries from different countries eventually, you know, and to install martial law. You know, it says a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. It's going to be military checkpoints. It's going to be checkpoints. To in the beginning and end of every city. You know, like in Chicago, that bridge. I forgot what it's called. But hey, you're not going to be able to pass. And it was like that at one point during the time of the CV-19. People couldn't pass that area. And I remember during that time period, because I live on the outskirts, you know, you couldn't enter certain parts of the city because there was a lot of construction and there was checkpoints going on. Verse 18, for because of their pride the city shall be destroyed, like it shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread, and for great tribulation. And that's the point I want to get. People are going to be fighting one another, entering into one another's homes, shooting people homes up, to get their goods, to get their resources. Water is going to be a hot commodity, which is a main. It's a hot topic right now. Esau Edom is making water a commodity. You know, shoot, basic things like canned goods is going to be a commodity. Gas and oil is going to be a commodity. You know, you've seen what happened during the CV-19. Esau Edom made toilet paper a commodity. You know, it's going to get stupid out here. It's going to get crazy. Hey, so that's all I had. Little one, I could do a part two once I get back to the crib. Right now, I'm currently on the gig. But yeah, Lord willing, I hope this lesson was edifying. Once again, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakakwadash, Gabon to Apostle Ellsbury Millstone, who taught us truth and rule well. Peace and salutations, hope for elect, whoever may be listening on the four corners of the earth. Kwani Asharala, Wa Ababa Chemotherapy 2026 soon.